All right, everyone. Let's go ahead and do it together. The meeting beginning ritual. 起立，面向佛堂，参加三鞠躬、一鞠躬、再鞠躬、三鞠躬，参加各位点传习一鞠躬，开班一鞠躬。请坐下。Please be seated. Okay, Bill, I'm going to go ahead and mute my microphone, sir.
Thank you. Good morning. Another beautiful Sunday. A little cooler in Indianapolis than it has been on the last couple of Sundays, but not bad. It's a very nice spring day to be alive. And I look out my window, I see buds on the trees, robins running around in the yard, grass starting to turn green, right at the very front edge of another beautiful and wonderful springtime. I absolutely really enjoy seeing the year turn around there. Just one of those things I'm thankful for. Today I'm wanting to chat with you a bit about the concept of unattached action. It's not a real well-known topic and subject to a tremendous amount of misinterpretation that plagues people as they're learning to cultivate the Tao teachings, or sometimes even get intentionally misused as an excuse for either doing nothing or doing whatever an individual thinks is appropriate for them, whether it's right or not. And where I want to start off today is on chapter 43 of the Tao Te Ching, which says that the softest things of the world override the hardest things of the world. That which has no substance enters into that which has no openings. From this, I know the benefits of unattached actions. Teaching without words. The benefit of actions without attachment are rarely matched in the world. This doesn't just describe activities and actions, but the signs of unattached action, if you will, the markers of one who uses the concept of wu wei, unattached actions, to accomplish what they need to get done. Pardon, rearrange my screen here just a tad. The chapter starts out by saying that the soft overrides the hard. And we talk about this particular concept a lot. This is kind of a reflection of what we might call the yin principle, the softer, more yielding, somewhat more passive, perhaps, principle of action and being in the universe. When we think about the soft overcoming the hard, one of the alliterations most used is the trees and the grass in a strong storm. Something we see here in Indiana with a degree of frequency. We get some pretty powerful thunderstorms here in the early spring and early fall as the weather and patterns begin to shift, and very often we'll see large and very substantial trees completely uprooted or pulled in half by nothing more than a strong wind. But the grasses around the trees just lay down flat in the wind, and then when the wind stops, things dry out, the sun comes up, they prop right back up and continue growing. That's a very familiar and easy to visualize picture of the soft overcoming the hard, the flexible overcoming the stiff and rigid and inflexible, that which can be moved or bendable to persist longer than that which cannot. Perhaps among the lesser known illustrations are stones in a riverbed. I take the entire Tai Chi school out camping most summers. We've done this now for oh heavens, I think our 5th or 6th year now, coming up this summer. And one of the things that we do when we're out is wander through the various creek beds. We typically go down to McCormick's Creek in Spencer, Indiana, and there's a decent kind of a creek. It's not really a river. It's a lot smaller than that runs through that park. And in the bed and on the banks of that creek, one can find stones that have been polished as smooth as glass by no more than the action of water and silt moving over them. On a somewhat larger scale, the Grand Canyon was created by the action of water and silt, sand, abrasive minerals in the water, wearing away countless layers of sandstone over millennia. It's a readily observable fact that which is softer, more yielding, more flexible will persist long after that which is not. Lao Tzu then goes on to say that which has no substance enters that which has no openings. Well, for anyone here who owns a home, particularly if it has a basement or a cement crawl space, we know that water infiltrates the foundations of buildings simply through osmotic attraction, where there's not a crack, not an opening, not a hole, but simply a point where the earth and the foundation meet and the water is able to infiltrate the concrete. If one has a poorly constructed roof, rainwater will infiltrate the roof and eventually consume and destroy the roofing, the subroof, and the soffits and what have you around it, which can create a rather costly repair. Water enters structures and places where we would prefer that it not gather because it is a substanceless sort of a substance. It doesn't have much in the way of a distinct form. It simply flows where it will and does what it does. That's what allows water to collect in large quantities and create some of the aquifers that we see around here. The big one out west is the Okalala Aquifer, which has helped to irrigate farmland and provide water for people for hundreds of years. All of that water gathers not because it's necessarily flowing there so much as it is that it pools and collects there. It's the accumulation of the groundwater that percolates through the soil. There may also be underground streams and what have you that feed into that, but an awful lot of it just percolates through the earth. When one is out in the mountainous regions of the country, one can come across places where water is naturally filtered through sandstone formations or other types of stone formations like limestone, and has the impurities and particulates and unsanitary stuff removed from it by passing through those layers of stone, which also have no openings, no holes, but have enough space in its structure to allow the water to pass through it, and in so doing create a natural filter that makes that water just as pure as it can possibly be and good to drink. Speaking of which, all of these things are examples of the penetration of that which is very soft, very formless, very flexible, moving through things which are not. Lao Tzu then says that he can understand the benefit of unattached action through these things, through what's observable. He doesn't necessarily say what the benefits of unattached action are. We're left to kind of infer that from the illustrations. However, we can kind of talk about those a bit. It's the concept of Wu Wei, unattached action. And I see this topic pop up from time to time all over. Quite frankly, very often I see it used in a misinterpreted version that says that Wu Wei is action through inaction, therefore I don't have to do anything. Well, okay, I suppose that's one interpretation. I would imagine that most people hopefully would recognize that that has to be false on its face. Cultivating the Tao teachings is not about waiting for the teachings to come and pour themselves out on us. It is a matter of learning, of understanding, of aggregating knowledge into wisdom, and then modifying what we do and how we do it so that we bring our actions, our attitudes, our hearts, and our minds closer into alignment with the way that the Tao works. Inaction in some cases may be a right and appropriate course. I don't want to say always and never. Those are very big words. And sometimes not doing anything is appropriate. But it isn't always appropriate. For me personally, I've always looked at Wu Wei as being the right and appropriate action at the right time. No less and no more. Okay? That's not a literal interpretation, and no one's certainly obligated to look at it that way. But I tend to find that clarifies the illustrations of the soft overcoming the hard and the actions without the attachments for me. It speaks to proper timing as well as right and appropriate action, doing the right thing at the right time. It speaks to a certain amount of wisdom, a certain amount of reservation or restraint or caution when we do what we do. And further, it speaks to accomplishment with withdrawal, accomplishing things and then disappearing, accomplishing things and then not seeking a whole bunch of recognition, accolades, self-aggrandizement, or other jewels of the ego self. It is the teaching without words. For me to sit here and talk to all of you about what unattached action is and what it means is a pale shadow of what it means to actually see it working, to actually being able to implement it in one's life, and to feel and find the benefits of that unattachment for oneself. And it's always in our example that we set the perception of ourselves in the minds of others for what it is that we do and how it is that we do it and how well it is that we do it. This is not a simple 4 or 5 or 6 line admonishment to a behavioral modification. This is a heart and soul altering event. This is an education in living and living better. And so it rests upon not only what we can observe, but on what we can learn through those observations. It talks to a process of trial and error that those of us who cultivate the Tao teachings are virtually destined to have to endure while we figure out how to make some of these things work properly. And for me in particular, learning how to be emotionally detached from the things that I do is not always an easy thing to accomplish. You know, oftentimes I have a huge vested interest in the outcome of my actions. Most of the things I do for a purpose. I do with a reason, and then therefore I have a vested interest in what the outcome is and what happens afterwards. Unfortunately, I'm not always able to see the entire big picture that spreads out in front of me as the result of what I might perceive as something small or insignificant or not too far reaching in terms of impact. And so every now and again, as I set about to accomplish something in an unattached fashion, I wind up not quite making it there. Something goes wrong, something unexpected happens, something else happens, and all of a sudden the attachments are there. Okay. The danger of those attachments are the same dangers that affect us in every other measure of Tao cultivation when we fail to understand the teachings and use them appropriately. Okay. Emotional attachment in general, no matter what it is we're emotionally attached to, brings about a certain amount of pride and arrogance, particularly when it comes to the things that we accomplish, the things that we do, the things that we possess, the things we think we own, that bigger, nicer car, the bigger, nicer house, so on and so forth. Those things are the tangible results of action with attachment. I want a new car, so I go out and work really hard to acquire the new car. Then when I get the new car, there's still a certain emptiness in my heart or in my soul that isn't quite full yet, so I go out and look for the next toy. Things like that. Or, I do something really neat at work. I uncover a bit of knowledge that nobody else has, or write a really cool project, or take care of a really big problem, or fill in the blank there. And I all of a sudden will find myself wanting recognition for having done that. Wanting to hop up on top of my desk chair and wave the flag a bit. And it's insidious, and it's soft, and it's gentle, and we can fall into those traps almost without even noticing. And so part of learning to act without those attachments is learning to recognize them. Attachments bring about pride and arrogance, and pride and arrogance bring about trouble. For a person who has to be recognized for everything they get and everything that they do, there is a corresponding set of behavior patterns usually that is likened to hubris, which is extreme arrogance. The philosophy of I'm better than everybody else, I'm righter than everybody else, you all need to know it, you all need to respect it. That attitude all by itself causes problems, even when it's not quite that extreme. Nobody ever wants to hear about how great and wonderful we are if we're the ones doing the talking. That grates on people's nerves. Even if we're right, it grates on people's nerves. It doesn't do anything to foster harmony and peacefulness and tranquility. Plain and simple. And so to the extent that we're attached to what we're doing, we're sowing the seeds of our own undoing. Without attachments, we're free to be more flexible. And flexibility is important, not just for trees or grass, but for all of us. We can choose either to be the huge tree trying to withstand the powerful storm, or we can choose to be the blade of grass such that when the storm comes by, we just lay back and let it pass. In our work lives, in our home lives, in our interactions with other people, we all tend to set these expectations, these preconceived notions in our minds of how things are supposed to go, what's supposed to happen, what the outcomes are supposed to be. We have that little mental scenario running as things unfold. To be inflexible is to not have the ability to adapt and evolve as things change. I'll tell you all very candidly, I'm a really good database administrator and programmer because I tend to think in terms of rules and linear progressions. Unfortunately, life doesn't always conform to linear thinking and rules-based logic. And so from time to time I find myself stuck at the intersection of how my mind works and how things really work. It's teaching me to be flexible, to be able to adapt as things change, to be able to evolve the plan as things become different, to be able to step out of the way when things shouldn't be going the way they are. And most importantly, perhaps, to accomplish and then disappear, to get out of the way of the accolades and all of the self-aggrandizement and praise and that sort of thing that don't really mean anything. That flexibility is unbelievably important to us. That flexibility is what allows us to lead simply and easily, without force, without any kind of emotional show of extremism, without pushing and prodding and coercing other people. Without attachment, there's flexibility. Without attachment, there's simplicity. The bare minimum amount of effort required to accomplish a specific task, that and no more. It is elegant in its ability to perceive what the minimum amount of force necessary to get something done is, whether it's mental force, physical strength, whatever. It's all about reducing things to its smallest components and accomplishing those things one at a time, completely, from beginning to end. It's about quiet strength, about not needing the accolades and the self-aggrandizement, about not needing the ego stroking and accoutrements of arrogance and pride, or the illusions of ownership and control. It's about being able to do things and simply withdraw. And it's harder than it looks. It is. Everybody likes to hear how well they've done. Everybody enjoys the occasional sincere compliment. Everybody wants to think that their contribution matters. And accomplishing and withdrawing doesn't actually diminish any of that. What it diminishes are the outward emotional signs of it. The braggadocio, the extraneous speech, the pontificating and posturing, the arrogance, the pridefulness. It is sufficient all by itself for us to know the truth without making everybody else have to admit it too. But that's only half the equation, and here's the part that we almost never talk about. Our attachments to our actions extend to the actions of other people. Right? I have children at home, and I have a lot of attachments to their actions. Some of them are safety concerns, some are survival needs, some are just plain emotional attachments, not wanting them to, for instance, to be bullied or to experience the derision of their peers in school, that sort of thing. Some of them are simply based on how I think and how I do things. Okay? I have a wife here at home. I have expectations for her, and she has expectations for me. Those attachments to the actions of others can have huge unintended consequences on us, a big impact on us, a huge effect on us. Okay? When the plans change, when the unexpected occurs in our lives, when things don't quite work out the way we thought they were going to, then we have problems. Then the emotional self, the ego self, feels that it's been slighted or shortchanged or cheated in some way, that something has gone egregiously wrong. And we find out that it isn't just our actions that we have attachments to, but it's the actions of others as well. Those are especially difficult to overcome because we cannot control them. Most of the time we can't control ourselves, let alone the actions and thoughts and minds of another person. And yet we hang a tremendous obligation for our well-being on those people around us whose actions we cannot control. It's a vicious circle. When we set expectations out there for other people, we put ourselves in the trap of attached actions, of emotional expectations and attachments that we cannot cause to be. I think one of my children just fell down the stairs. So we have to watch out for those things. And they are insidious, and they are soft. They work their way into our hearts and minds, and we don't even realize they're there until something goes wrong. And then we know they're there. Unattached action means that we don't place any attachment on what we do, and we don't place any attachments on what those around us do either. We become flexible. We become soft. We exhibit the yin side of our personality and allow others to do the same. And in so doing, 90% of the time anyway, we will fulfill the expectations of others. We will rise naturally to the excellence of the sage, to our highest and best potential, to our best ability to do that which we do. That part isn't so difficult when we quit agonizing and worrying about what we do and how we do it, and just get on about doing it naturally, allowing the Tao process to work within us. Then everything rises to the appropriate level. I've seen that happen over and over and over again. It's one of the near miraculous things that I see happen. And I've seen it happen in my life too. But I call it miraculous because I can't even come close to fully explaining it. So how would I wrap this up in 2,500 words in 3 minutes or less? Well, I guess first of all, controlling our own attachments to our own actions can be very difficult. Just like myself, I'm sure we all have a certain emotional attachment to most of the things that we do. And supplanting that to emotional control and reason can be difficult. But along with that, controlling our attachments to the actions of others can be just very nearly impossible sometimes. We have a huge vested income in the outcome of what the people around us do and don't do. We have a huge attachment to the actions of the people we love, for instance. It is really quite amazing how attached we are to what those folks do, sometimes even more so than we are to ourselves. And learning to release that emotional attachment, learning to turn loose of that need to control, is a huge and important step in mastering ourselves. Lao Tzu says those who know others are strong. Those who know themselves are stronger even yet. But people who can master others have strength, but people who can master themselves are stronger than that. Well, part of that is learning to release the emotional attachments. Part of that is learning to let go. Part of that is not trying to hold everybody up to a set of expectations that they can't ever reach and that we've never told them we had. And it's important for us to try not to do that to ourselves either. I guess the most important thing that I've come across here as I've been both trying to apply these teachings and watching them is that for as long as we hold on to those expectations, for as long as we place conditions and obligations on what we do and on what others do, as long as we have that vested interest in the outcomes, that inability to be flexible, to move and to grow and to change as things change around us, we actually limit the possibilities of the things that we can do and the good things that we can have come out of our unattached actions. It's not just simply about accomplishment, but rather it's about really excellent accomplishment with doing what needs doing, no more and no less, and understanding that that was sufficient. When we can see the bigger picture, when we can turn loose of the small-minded attachments that we place on people and things and our actions, then the possibilities open up to the infinite, and we can do about anything. Thank you all very much. I kind of hope that was helpful in some way. Thank you.